You know what's absolutely mind-blowing? Right now, as you're watching this, there's an entire hidden personality living inside you that you've probably never met. And here's the kicker. This invisible force is secretly controlling who you fall in love with, why certain people drive you crazy, and why you sometimes act in ways that shock even yourself. Carl Jung discovered something that will fundamentally change how you see relationships forever. Inside every man lives a woman he calls the anima. Inside every woman lives a man called the animus. And if you don't know these inner figures exist, they're literally hijacking your life from the shadows. Think about it. Have you ever fallen head over heels for someone the instant you met them? That wasn't really love at first sight. That was your anima or animus taking control, projecting this perfect inner image onto a total stranger. Jung called this complete madness, and he wasn't wrong. But here's where it gets really dark. If you ignore these inner forces, they turn vampiric. They'll drain your life energy, leave you depressed and passive, or worse, they'll make you unconsciously destroy the people you love most. If you're finding this fascinating, make sure to hit that like button because we're about to dive deep into something most people never discover about themselves. Let's start with men and the anima, your inner woman. She's usually shaped by your relationship with your mother, and she can either be your greatest guide or your worst nightmare. When she's negative, she'll whisper poison in your ear. You're nothing. Nothing makes sense. Everyone else has it better than you. Sound familiar? This is why some men suddenly feel this crushing emptiness, this fear of disease, accidents, or failure. It's like a vampire is literally sucking their blood, their life force. They wake up depressed, everything feels meaningless, and they just want to escape into fantasies instead of actually living. But here's what's really insidious: some men escape into what Jung calls destructive intellectual games. They get so lost in philosophical discussions and endless reflection that they never actually do anything. They think they're being smart, but really they're just hiding from life because it's too scary to take real action. And then there's the mama's boy syndrome. These men either worship women as perfect goddesses they can never have, or they despise them as mere objects for their fantasies. Neither way works because both are projections, not reality. Now women, your animus, your inner man, works differently. Instead of moods, he gives you sacred convictions that feel absolutely true but might be completely wrong. He's that voice saying things like, "The only thing I want is love and he doesn't love me." Or, "There are only two possibilities here and both are terrible." When your animus goes dark, he becomes like Bluebeard, that fairy tale villain who kills his wives and hides them in a secret chamber. Your inner Bluebeard will whisper, "What's the point of trying? You're hopeless. Life will never get better." And just like the anima, this animus can turn vampiric, stealing life from everyone around you. But here's the plot twist, and this is why you need to stick around for this entire video. Both the anima and animus have incredibly positive sides that can literally transform your life. When a man integrates his anima properly, she becomes his guide to the inner world. Think Beatrice leading Dante through heaven. She gives him access to feelings, creativity, and spiritual wisdom he never knew he had. Jung described 4 stages, from basic instinct Eve, to romantic love Helen of Troy, to spiritual devotion Virgin Mary, to transcendent wisdom, the Mona Lisa. Women, when you befriend your animus instead of being possessed by him, he gives you initiative, courage, objectivity, and spiritual wisdom. His 4 stages go from pure physical power, the athlete, to planned action, the executive, to the word, the professor, to ultimate meaning, the spiritual guide. Here's the secret that changes everything. These aren't just abstract concepts. You can actually work with these inner figures directly. Jung had patients who would write to their anima or animus, and they would write back. There was this Scottish writer, William Sharp, who wrote under the name Fiona MacLeod, his anima. The writing that came through her was so different and powerful that even he knew it wasn't coming from his ordinary self. Comment below if you've ever experienced something similar, a creative burst that felt like it came from somewhere else entirely. The practice is surprisingly simple but requires courage. Pay attention to your moods, fantasies, and feelings. Instead of dismissing them as just fantasy, write them down, paint them, or express them somehow. Treat them as absolutely real communications from your unconscious. When you start having imaginary conversations with these inner figures, you're not going crazy, you're actually expanding your consciousness. You're doing what Jung called active imagination, and it's one of the most powerful tools for psychological growth ever discovered. But here's what most people miss: you can't skip steps. You have to deal with your shadow first before you can properly meet your anima or animus. If you haven't done shadow work, these inner figures will just marry your shadow and create an even bigger mess. The goal isn't to get rid of these inner voices, that's impossible. The goal is to become conscious of them so they stop controlling you from the shadows. When you know your anima or animus, you can dialogue with them, learn from them, and stop projecting them onto every person you meet. This is the real secret to mature relationships. Instead of falling in love with your projections, you can actually see the real person in front of you. Instead of being drained by vampire-like inner voices, you can access wellsprings of creativity and wisdom you never knew existed. Jung spent his life analyzing over 80,000 dreams and found that this process, what he called individuation, is actually the main drive of human psychological development. We're all trying to become whole, to integrate these unconscious aspects of ourselves. The tragic thing is that most people never discover this. They go through life possessed by inner figures they've never met, projecting them onto others, creating drama and pain without ever understanding why. But you're different. You're here, you're learning, and you're taking the first steps towards psychological freedom. Make sure to subscribe because understanding your anima or animus is just the beginning. The journey toward the self, the ultimate archetype of wholeness, is where things get really interesting. Share this video with someone who needs to understand why their relationships keep following the same painful patterns. Because once you see these inner forces at work, you can never unsee them. And that's when real transformation becomes possible. The question isn't whether you have an anima or animus. You definitely do. The question is, will you meet them consciously, or let them control you from the shadows forever?